Hello everyone, welcome to the AM Review channel, and today we're looking at how to save money with 5 quick steps. Tip number 1 is track your spending. There are different ways that you can do it. Some people prefer to use an Excel spreadsheet where they go through the bank statement and put everything into an Excel spreadsheet to track how they're spending and where their money is going. But nowadays, with all the technology that's available, there are other ways that you can do it, which I also recommend, and it's not more work for you to do. Because not everyone is Excel savvy or would like to take on that extra task. So if you look at one of the best options at the moment is using a free budgeting app. There are many of these that are available at the moment, and I'm sure you guys are familiar with them. You've seen some of the adverts from them. I would definitely say that use these guys because they're free to use and it does a lot of the work for you, and it's easy for you to get a report at the end of each month and see how you can actually save more money and how you're spending money on certain things. Some of these I haven't used myself, but I know I'm familiar with Yolt. Quite a few friends of mine have used it as well, and they've got good things to say about it. And also go into the individual websites for all these application providers, and they might be able to offer you even more ways in which you can save money. Of course, they are paid for apps as well, but again, I would say as you're looking to save money, probably use the free ones, and they cost you nothing anyway. So if you need to get rid of it, or if you don't like the usability, then you can get rid of it at no cost to yourself. And the way that I would recommend that you use it at the moment is by using your current bank. If you're in the UK, you would know that we have quite a lot of new banks, sort of younger banks that are great for tracking your expenses. They're easier to use, and actually I recommend them for your day-to-day spending because they're much better than traditional banks in tracking it. You'll probably be familiar with Monzo, Sterling Bank, and Revolut. These are all amazing banks that you can use for your day-to-day spendings. For example, I've got Monzo, and it's really good for when I'm using my account on a day-to-day basis, the analytics that you get from it, and also how easy it is to get a card and also set up an account. I would say probably they years and years ahead of the traditional banks, and many of the traditional banks are actually trying to catch up with these guys on how they can actually service their clients. Or if you don't want to open up a new bank account, I would say get the app, the banking application for your current bank. Many of the big banks now have started to provide these additional services in there for you to track your savings and track how much you're spending as well. For example, I know Barclays has an application where you can use to track how much you're spending, and you get quite a lot of detail from it. So if you don't want to reach out and try something new, of course, try your existing bank, but the most important thing is have a look at what you're spending, and if you can use some of these new ways and the technology that's available today for you to do that, I definitely encourage it. Once you have an idea of how much you're spending every month, then we can go into the next step of how you can manage your money going forward. Step number 2 is do not buy now. Why I say don't buy now is because most of the time, I've been there myself, you want to buy something not because you need it, but because you can have it or you think that you're getting a good deal from it. Now, one of the things that I've started to do is to make sure that even if you think something's a really good deal, if you do not need it, you don't buy it, because it doesn't matter if you've got 50% off, ultimately you're spending money that you otherwise would not have spent. And it's quite clear to see there's a lot of research that's been done on this around shopping actually being addictive. And the interesting thing about this research is that it's not necessarily the shopping itself that is addictive. It's the idea of going out and shopping and spending money that's addictive. And actually, once you get the item itself, you quickly realize that that gratification that you got from buying the first item has actually moved on, and you want to do it again. So it's quite important to make sure that you get some self-control that stops you from going out and making these impulse purchases. And sitting on something like for 24 hours will do a great deal of making sure that you actually do not end up spending money that you do not need to. As you can see, the research that was actually carried out that is referenced within this article shows that the immediate gratification of shopping always seems to outweigh the reckoning of suffering. Now, to me, that means if you're buying something, for example, that you cannot afford, and you're going to have to get it on a credit card or borrow money from friends, that's not a good enough reason for you to get it. You should only get items that you can absolutely afford yourself, and you're not putting yourself in a negative position by doing so. So it's quite important to actually be quite honest with yourself and make sure that you're not deceiving yourself when it comes to what you can afford or what you actually need. One of the things that is quite popular at the moment is that people buy multiple items that they don't necessarily need, but just because they're in a good they have a good offer, or just because they might need it in the future. Now you need to make sure that you're only buying things that you absolutely need at the time that you need them, because as you can see, it's not something that you necessarily have control over. It's something that makes you feel good if you spend that money, and making sure that you're in control of that situation will help you deploy your money in a much safer and a productive way. One of the things is that I actually started to do is, if you do have some spare cash at the end of the month, which a lot of people, if you've done your savings and you still have some money left over at the end of the month, make sure that you do not spend that money. Put that money into something else, put it into a savings account, for example, and that money will actually be worth a lot more in the future. One of the things that I've started to do, for example, is if you really need to buy something, do some research on into your savings and buy something that is actually a saving for yourself in the future. Stocks and shares, ISAs, for example, or investments are quite good for this. So you still get that same gratification of spending. However, you're spending on something that is actually for your future and will help you develop and help your financial situation going forward. However, you have to be quite careful when it comes to investing, because also investing is incredibly addictive. So make sure that when you do it, you do your research and you're investing in something that is relatively low risk, to make sure that your money is safe and is going to be around for and available to you in the future. So save your savings. This is a really, really good one, guys. If you want to put a bit more money away, is that making sure that when you save money on an expense during your month, you make sure that you put that money into a savings account immediately. So what I mean by that is, for example, if you spend £20 on travel, for example, and you have found a more efficient way to do it, whether you are now taking the bus instead of the train or cycling, that money that you otherwise would have used for that travel is now goes into your savings account and is put away into savings. And if you carry on doing these things on other expenses as well, then you'll save more and more money, and then you have more money to put away. It's quite easy for you to reduce your expenses by finding an alternative way to do something, or by getting a better deal and still keeping your expenses, your spending at that level, because that money is just taken up by something else. So make sure that if you can save money, and if you do save money on anything during the month, you put that money away and use it for something else. Tip number 4 is review your monthly payments. This is another great way that you can save more money from your actual day-to-day expenses, and enabling you to put more money away into a savings account or something else for the future. Now, I think it's quite important that you make sure that what you're spending at the moment is reviewed. I wouldn't say on a monthly basis, because that's just too much to keep on top of, but definitely I would say at least every 6 months you look at what you're spending, and if there are ways in which you can actually make sure that you reduce that amount. If you're in a fixed contract, for example, it might be 12 months or 18 months, make sure that when that contract is up for renewal, you definitely look into it and make sure that you get a price that is more competitive and something that enables you to save money. So an example, one of the websites that I like to use is Money Savings Expert, and you can go on here and just to get an idea of what are the different things that you can save. So you can look at credit cards, you can look at your household bills on here as well. So there are quite a few things that you can go into to make sure that you are making the most of the money that you have, and as you continue making these payments, you're actually getting some money back. You'll be surprised at how much you can actually save when you review your contracts. One of the important things is making sure that you don't tie yourself into a contract that is too long, unless you think it's a really, really good deal and it saves you a lot of money, because at the end of the day, locking yourself into a contract because you can't be bothered to go in and look for a better deal is not a good enough deal. And I promise you, on most of these long-term contracts, whether it's your broadband provider, your internet provider, your energy provider, whatever it may be, once your contract finishes, they put you on one of their worst deals. So you have to make sure that you check what's available to you as often as you can. Okay, and the final step is find a savings account. Finding a savings account, I would really consider three options at the beginning. So don't overcomplicate it. Just find something that works for you at the moment and start saving. And once you get used to it, once you start getting into a routine, then you can explore more complex saving possibilities, as well as finding ways in which you can actually, be a bit more riskier with some of your savings when it comes to investments, for example. But at the beginning, definitely, I would just say find something that you're comfortable to put money in every single month, and you'll have that commitment to it. So, for example, if you go into money .co.uk, as you can see here, you have three main options. You have an instant access savings account, so this is mainly around your sort of day-to-day saving, if you like. So here you can just put money away, and in case you need it, it's quite easy for you to access, and it's not really that complicated. So this is a very good way for you to start. If you look at investment ISAs, now ISAs, if you're in the UK, you might be familiar with them. This is a great way for you to take your savings to that next level, where you actually commit money into it. Most likely here, if you don't need the money immediately, so I wouldn't recommend it for beginners, but definitely if you're going to that next level, I would definitely recommend an ISA. And of course, you have a cash ISA, which you can easily access the money, and you also have a stocks and shares ISA, so you can look into these different options. You can split your money across both of them, and the great thing about ISAs is that it's a tax efficient way to save money because you don't have to pay any money on the dividends that you get from your ISA. So this is a great way. And finally, a fixed rate bond savings account. This one is effectively, as it says on the tin, you have a fixed rate that is guaranteed to you by the provider if you put a certain amount of money in on an ongoing basis. So this again is a great way to save money because you know exactly how much you'll get at the end. However, unlike the instant access, this is really if you're going to put money in there for the long term and not take it out. And again, when it comes to savings, always have the view of anything that you put away, you do not need to touch it for at least 5 years. That's the idea that I would always recommend when you're going into any savings. Even if you're putting in an instant access, an investment ISA or a fixed rate, just keep the amount of money in there as long as you possibly can. And if you need to a little bit more cash in the following month, then create that cash through reducing your expenses and managing how you spend money. And if you go on to various websites on the internet, you can see deals on how you can compare, for example, what's available to you from savings, and you can review them. So I recommend everyone to go out there, do your research, but most importantly, just start saving, because with every pound that you put away, it's an easier future for you. So definitely I'll make another video where I go into the different savings accounts and ISAs maybe in more detail in the future, because that's a great way to save money. And let me know if you want to see that video in the future in the comments, guys. And thank you very much for watching. Make sure you click the like button, subscribe to the channel. I'll be making a lot more content for you guys. Write in the comments what you would like to see. I aim to do about 2 videos a week for you guys, but if you want to see more, if you have any suggestions, let me know. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.